Welcome to this LinkedIn live stream event, during which we're going to be looking back at this year's TRB conference and also looking ahead at how pavement friction can help reduce crashes and deaths on American roads in the coming year. My name is John Day and I'm the marketing manager at WDM. I'm joined today by my colleague, Ryland Potter, Vice President of the WDM USA and also Chairman of the ATSA High Friction Surfacing Council. Ryland.
Hey guys, good to talk with you today.
Also online with us is the president of Skidabrader Group, John Freeberg. John?
Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to be aboard.
And we've also got Skidabrader Senior Manager, Sheldon Spears. Sheldon?
Hello, guys.
Well, we'll be hearing from all of them in just a moment. But first, I just want to refer to a study by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. It came out last week during TRB and claims that traffic crashes in the US cost society $340 billion in 2019. That works out at $1,000 each for all the country's 328 million population. And with fatal crashes continuing to rise, it's not surprising that high on the agenda at TRB was just how America's roads can be made safer. Well, that study and report will hopefully act as a wake-up call for everyone involved in the road sector, and safety was certainly on the forefront of everyone's minds at TRB. Well, I'm going to start our roundup today of last week's conference with my colleague Ryland, who's based at Richmond in Virginia. Ryland, what's your main overriding takeaway from TRB this year?
Yeah, thanks, John. It's a great time for this recap. Now, most of us about a week out of TRB. You sometimes hear as a parent that the days are long, but the years are short. TRB makes for some long days, but after leaving the TRB bubble, we get back into our routines so quickly. It's easy to think past some of the new and interesting things that we've learned, want to dig into or make more time for. So it's great to have this opportunity to talk through some of those key highlights. So here are a few things that are on our radar for this year. First and foremost, friction and texture topics made up about half the content in some of the key committees that we participate in and working on pavement characterization and condition evaluation. And I really can't emphasize how much of a shift that is over the past few years. Take away from that, it doesn't mean that you'll be asked to think about friction or texture every day going forward, but maybe every other day going forward, 50% of your time. If you ask the organizations that we work with to develop pavement friction management strategies, the emphasis and this new emphasis among some of the leading thinkers at TRB has been a good one. Primarily, as to your point, John, we're talking in terms of pavement friction and texture, in terms of magnitudes of difference of 30 to 40% reductions in total crashes and 20 to 30% reductions in fatal and serious injury crashes. So it's not just about the kind of theoretical or heady application of information. It's about living, breathing people being directly and indirectly impacted by historic lack of awareness, maybe about the importance of measuring and monitoring pavement friction. Among some of the other topics that the committee took up, or committees took up, was the role of different methods for measuring and filtering macrotexture to relate it to various performance characteristics of the roadway. There are a few standards in play in terms of sensor measured texture, both line and spot. Those different methods have, different positives and negatives. There's some experimental approaches that people are outlining, but they haven't really been explored at a network level scale. And so, I imagine a lot of the conversation over this year and moving into next year will be looking at some of those alternate methods and comparing those to some of the established methods. And then, in a similar vein, there was a lot of talk about needing well-defined engineering and data standards for crowdsourced data. This is a critical point because DOTs need to be involved in knowing and defining how that data is created and how it relates to ground truth measurements that have been the basis of decision making. and are the basis for decision making going forward. The last thing I'll mention is life cycle and the ability to predict and model friction deterioration over the life cycle of pavement. That's kind of the golden goose for folks trying to figure out, how you can make friction part of your planning process and your life cycle management process. And so I expect there'll be a lot of conversations about that this year.
Well, thanks, Ryland. Very much center of everybody's world at the moment is just how we move things forward. But just before we go to John, I want to thank our audience out there today for joining this event and remind you, if you have any questions at any time, please enter them into the text box. We'll answer as many as we possibly can at the end. Right, John, you've been sitting there patiently. Thanks for joining us. What's your key takeaway from TRB last week?
So again, thanks for having me today. Greatly appreciated and really enjoyed this platform. So when first asked to do this, I thought back on different lectures that I sat in, and the pavement texture signature number to the evaluating the effectiveness of surface treatments, network level friction prediction model, and the National Survey of High Friction Surface Treatments. But one of the poster sessions that stuck out to me, and that we really don't think much about, was the safety evaluation of high friction surface treatments at signalized intersections done by British Columbia. So typically we think about road departures at horizontal curves or longer stretches of highways, or the rear-ending of vehicles at ramps or exit ramps. So it really did intrigue me on this and their case study and what they did here. The study, the safety evaluation of high friction at signalized intersection was performed by the University of British Columbia. And then the high friction surface treatment itself was placed by the Ministry of Transportation. So it's a very well thought out study. And after approximately about 147 hours of video data they collected at the two signalized areas, the safety evaluation, pre and post evaluations at each location as well. Overall, the pre and post showed a reduction of 38%, which really for a, seemed to be a slower area, less traffic, speed-wise than that. It was interesting to see 38%. So if they're telling us there's 38% reduction in, these areas, what is this overall affecting on our major highways and areas that need high friction surface treatments? So in the end, that was one that really stuck out to me, and definitely want to do some more research on it and get more involved with it.
Right, thank you, John. Sheldon, we haven't forgotten you. Don't worry. How did you find TRB this year?
Thank you, John. So we went into TRB this year primarily interested in the supplementary research on high friction surface treatments and other friction improvement processes. We wanted to gauge their efficacy in reducing vehicle crashes and curved roadways and intersections. So another poster section that I was interested in was one performed by Georgia Tech and the Georgia DOT regarding their assessment of common friction improvement processes. So their research initially looked at the efficacy of 3 friction improvement surface treatments, or what they call FISTs, currently or previously employed by GDOT. So namely, they looked at Phonolite TPO, which is referred to as Wyoming bauxite. They looked at lightweight aggregate chip seals, and then they looked at traditional high friction surface treatment with calcined bauxite. So the long-term friction performance was analyzed for each of these treatments, and they concluded that after 3 years of monitoring, Wyoming bauxite showed a poor long-term friction performance with more than 40% initial friction drop-off within 3 months of installation. Friction levels stabilized after that, but with DFT values below 0.5 and after only 1 million ESOLs of traffic, Wyoming bauxite was not recommended for future projects. Lightweight aggregate chip seals resulted inconclusively. 3 years of monitoring could only be performed on 2 of the sites that received this treatment. And with total traffic volume between these 2 sites only reaching 1.2 million ESOLs over 3 years, it was difficult to draw definitive conclusions on this treatment. So further research is definitely needed on lightweight aggregate chip seals at this time. The monitoring of calcined bauxite high friction surface treatment showed very good long-term friction performance with little friction drop-off initially and high friction value sustained over 2 million ESOLs and the duration of this study, which demonstrated that it's a great treatment for improving surface friction on areas with large friction demand and high traffic. At Skidabrader, we're always interested in new and innovative forms of friction improvement, and we'll continue to watch these alternate processes closely for further performance results. But high friction surface treatment continues to stand out to us as one of the most effective tools in preventing wet weather accidents and roadway departures. John.
Thanks, Sheldon. Well, unlike you guys who went along to a lot of the committees, I spent most of my week in front of this beast over my shoulder at our exhibition stand, and I certainly it actually created a lot of interest. This machine behind me actually provides continual friction measurement of the road surface, which helps identify exactly where high friction surface treatment should be put down. Delegates all wanted to know about the difference friction could make to road safety. Well, we've been building these machines for more than half a century now. In fact, we've got them in 18 different countries worldwide. Where the company has been providing survey services for over a prolonged period, such as in the UK, where I'm based, and in New Zealand, there's been a marked reduction in skid-related fatalities of up to 40%. Now, if it was possible to emulate that in the US, more than 10,000 lives could be saved every single year, which is incredible to think. More and more states are now looking seriously at continual friction measurement, particularly the fact that it measures around horizontal curves. I call them bends here in the UK because it's easier to understand, but at the moment they're largely untested in the US, even though 55% of all fatalities throughout the US are involving roadway departure. So there is hard, proven evidence that friction can deliver safer roads and save lives, and you guys know all about that. So let's go back now to Ryland, and Ryland, perhaps you can give us an insight into just what WDM USA are doing with scrim surveys.
Yeah, thanks, John. So, as mentioned, we're working with a number of states now in a couple of different capacities. So not only to understand the role that friction is playing on their network and in terms of their safety performance, but also how they can improve the performance of that through either targeted safety interventions, similar to some of the work that Skidabrader is doing, but how they can time those interventions so that they're getting the most life out of the pavement that they can, and making a cost-effective investment when it's going to have the greatest effect. And so, optimizing treatments, identifying where those treatments need to be placed, and then, moving towards understanding how does friction perform across the road surface life cycle so you can make those timely treatments. That's really what we're doing in a number of states. And we've been really pleased that where we've found opportunities for there to be improvements in friction and texture, a lot of our partner states have also found opportunities with Skidabrader to target improvements to those locations.
That's great. Thank you, Ryland. Now, Sheldon, Ryland has mentioned there, obviously, that Skidabrader can come in and sort out some of the issues. When we've done survey work, we can identify the state of the road surface and just whether it's near failure, whether it needs some light touch attention, whether it needs a complete resurfacing job. Obviously, one of the alternatives is to call in guys like you who can actually come up with some different solutions. So perhaps you can tell us a little bit about that and the kind of work that you do to help improve safety.
Absolutely, John. So while we leave the data collection to professionals like WDM, Skidabrader is one of the main contractors waiting to take action once that data has been collected and analyzed. So we employ several different treatments to remediate sections that have been identified to have poor friction levels. We perform high friction surface treatment, which, as we discussed earlier, is a great tool for areas with high friction demand and traffic volume. But we also perform our unique process of pavement texturing, which effectively increases the macro texture of the existing pavement. This process relies on the polish resistance properties of the existing aggregate. So while it does not have the full 7 to 12 year life cycle of high friction surface treatment, it can be performed for roughly 1/10 of the cost and at nearly 5 times the productivity, cutting down on overall effects of traffic. We implement these two processes in tandem to address entire stretches of roadway and employ each process based on the friction demand levels of the given area. I think that having multiple tools in our tool belt will become more and more important as DOTs start to develop these dynamic statewide friction improvement programs, focusing on data collection and then remediation thereafter.
That's great. Thanks, Sheldon. Now, John, I don't want you to feel left out. I'd like to hear a little bit more about Skidabrader, but also you've got quite a big event coming up at the end of this month as well. So perhaps you can tell us a little bit about that and what you're actually hoping to achieve through that and your plans for the coming year.
Thanks, John. So just to give you a little backstory here, Skidabrader, was purchased by the Bard Capital Group back in 2019. And when I came on board here, it was well known what Skidabrader could accomplish. But in the last 3 years, we've really developed a reputation across the country of alternative to high friction surface treatment. It's not to replace it, it's just another tool in the tool belt. And right now, what we're doing is we're having a grand opening at our Fort Worth location, and we want everybody to come in and really look inside and out of what we have to offer in all our services. Between the high friction surface treatment, the skidabrading or texturing, surface abrasion, and then also we have our sister company, Cyclone Ultra High Pressure, that's going to be here as well. We started probably in 2 to 3 to 4 states here 3 years ago, and right now we'll complete work in, I believe it's 19 states this year. And the future for Skidabrader is that we are licensed and we'll be working in 38 plus states in the next couple of years. And that'll include high friction surface treatment and texturing.
That's great. Thank you, John. Now, obviously, we've got an audience out there who hopefully will pose some questions for us, which we'll address in a moment. But before we go to the questions, I'd like to kind of put you on the spot, each of you, one at a time. And perhaps if, bearing in mind we're now in a new year, we might have missed the day for making New Year resolutions. But if you had to make one resolution now, and how we might change things for 2023 and going forward to 2024, perhaps you can all give me keep it less to a minute if you can, and let's hear your resolutions for 2023. Ryland, we'll start off with you.
I was really hoping you'd pick Sheldon first, and then I could just say ditto. Well, yeah, I mean, so it's been a really interesting journey these past few years. I started continuous friction measurement. It'll be 5 years towards the end of this year. Although I've only aged from friction about 10 days, but it's been a really rewarding process of working with folks who, as I said, there wasn't a great awareness of the importance of friction when we kind of started these conversations. And there wasn't really an awareness of the questions to ask. I think it's great that, even as we're talking about how to implement some of the things that are tried and true, established outside of the U.S., things that kind of rhyme with what we're seeing here in the U.S. as well, and strategies that we think work, that we're still pushing the boundaries. We're still choosing to be curious about how this can work best for a range of different people and a range of different clients and a range of different contexts. And so, I think we've asked over the past 2 years, we've asked our clients to be curious about the, friction and the role it plays for them, to be curious about different strategies, to be curious about solutions that that we might be able to offer, or other people might be able to offer in terms of improving friction. We've asked people to kind of be curious, and I think if I have a resolution, it's to match that curiosity and keep pushing the envelope this year with some of the questions that we see surfaced in these committees. Leading some of the research, taking the information that we've been able to collect, and really asking critical questions for our clients in terms of what strategies are going to work best for them. So I blew through your 1 minute mark, but I guess my resolution for 2023 is to be curious and to look for kind of optimal solutions for our clients around pavement friction management.
Great. Well, thank you, Ryland. Worth every bit of the extra time.
You're
John.
biased.
John.
Yes, sir. So a little bit piggybacking off of Ryland, but the way we look at it here at Skidabrader is if we're saving one life, we're making a difference. So that'd be my resolution going into here is, I've watched and I've done some research on your work, John, in the UK, and I've seen the way the European states have taken friction, taken it to another level. I think we can do the same here in the US. Not that we're not doing a good job, but I think we can do better. We need to find areas and realize, hey, this can get better, and how can we help you provide that service? But at the end of the day, if we're saving one life on their way home because we improve their roads because of departures or wet road accidents, that makes a difference to us here at Skidabrader. So that'd be my resolution, is just to get as many people as we can home safe every night.
Yeah, very good,
Good job.
John. Thank you very much. Sheldon, you're last but certainly not least. So come on, let's be inspired.
Well, I have the luxury of building off of both of those answers. So I think my resolution will be to spur more proactivity. I think in the past we've been reactive in terms of remediating friction, and that has resulted in not achieving the goal that John's talking about saving lives. Now that we have an idea where it's not 100%, but we have a great program in place. We have contractors like WDM who can come in and can collect that data and interpret it for you and help you identify those areas. So I hope to spur more action this year. It's easy to get bogged down in the perfect analysis of a piece of data, but if we're not taking action afterwards, then the process really isn't doing all that it can be. So I hope that this year we can push more people into proactive friction improvement, remediating these areas before it makes the news, unfortunately.
You're
Yeah,
here.
very good. I must admit, it's quite interesting you mentioning about saving lives. When I joined WDM some years ago now, I used to go to business networking groups, and somebody would say to me, "What does WDM stand for?" And I'd quite easily say in my elevator pitch, "We do miracles." And they'd all smile. "Well, come on, surely it doesn't mean that." I said, "Well, look at it this way. We've been working around the globe for 50 years. And we've helped save a lot of lives, and every single life saved is a miracle. So, perhaps we can all join together in 2023 and start doing lots more miracles and, taking on board everything that you've all said." Now, we've got time now to do some questions. I know we've had one in at the moment. I don't see any others, but the one that came in was really a kind of a follow-on from TRB and what's been said and reflected already, really, to an extent. And that's that we've all perhaps seen an improvement in the way states and engineers are beginning to recognize that friction can make a difference. So, perhaps some more thoughts on that. John, I'll come back to you again on that one. Obviously, you deal day to day with friction problems. So, what thoughts have you got on that?
So, and I want to go back to what Sheldon said here, and it coincides with this, is right now, I think a lot of the programs out there are reactive instead of proactive. And I can't drill down to that enough. Let's go out there and be part of that pavement preservations is foreseeing this, using your guys' tools of the continuous friction testing, and then put that plan in place. And then have that plan in place where we're meeting certain numbers, criteria, where we can build a 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 year plan and go in there and remediate these areas and not be reactive after something happens. Let's be proactive. That's the biggest thing that I'm taking out of this and really pushing for.
Sheldon, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think it's optimistic. And just in the past 3 years, I've seen multiple states come into their own and develop programs where they collect the data. And then just because the crash statistics aren't super high, that doesn't mean that it doesn't deserve a second look and then eventually some type of treatment, preventing those crash statistics from rising. I've dealt with 3 or 4 states personally that have developed more dynamic approaches where, depending on the texture demand or the friction demand, they'll prescribe a different type of treatment. This isn't a square block and a round hole. I think there's going to be different approaches based on the different needs of the roadways, whether it be an intersection, a tight radius curve, a tangent section. These are all going to require different forms of remediation. So definitely building off of Rylands, be curious about new treatments, and then continue to be proactive, as John said.
And Ryland, if I just kind of add in something to that question, part of the recognition has come as a result of the Federal Highways Pool Fund, encouraging more and more states to trial continuous friction measurement. And of course, Federal Highways have also included continual friction measurement as one of their safety pillars, you might say now. So, we're going in the right direction, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that continuous friction measurement, or pavement friction management using continuous friction measurement was named one of the proven safety countermeasures this past year is a real testament to the analysis that Federal Highways has done on the data that they've collected and what they see as the potential. The fact that more and more states are joining, I think, speaks to the fact that states like to see examples of how other states are doing things. That's kind of the fundamental nature of Departments of Transportation. They want to see it put into practice somewhere. And so on this front, I'm going to name names. I'm going to shout out the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet for being the leaders that they are in this space. Really having thrown themselves into the deep end on this a couple of years ago, working with us and other partners to dig into this data, with the goal of forming, a comprehensive and cost-effective and proactive pavement friction management program, all the things that we think are important to have. And the steps that they've taken, the kinds of analyses that they've developed, the choices they're now making and implementing what they've learned from those, that's really where other DOTs are going to benefit, seeing and learning from their example. Peer exchange is a great forum for that. It's funny, at TRB, they had last year, there was a peer exchange held in Louisville, again, recognizing, where Kentucky is relative to other states in this process. It was held in Louisville. There was, 10 states or so in attendance. We had a little bit of a reunion at TRB last week. And one of the Federal Highways representatives said at the meeting that they had never seen so many states make such progress in their goals after peer exchange as they did after the continuous friction peer exchange. So, again, it's everyone coming together to talk about the benefits, to round out the solutions, to provide examples of how this can benefit folks and how you can step through, from the point of maybe not currently having a strategy to manage pavement friction, all the way through the process of, how are we going to, on a day-to-day basis, address this? I think there's tremendous progress being made I think that the more states that look around and realize that there are a bunch of other states doing this, maybe not loudly, maybe not as publicly as maybe think, but those things are coming. The case studies, the guidelines, the here's how we did it, are coming as well. But the opportunities to participate or learn from other states, those are there as well. So I think great question, John. I think it's really trending in the right direction.
Right. Well, thank you very much. I just want to leave you. We've come up to the end of our 30 minutes, and I just want to leave you with one simple thought, and that's that safer roads save lives. So we wish you all a very safe 2023, and I'm sure everybody will be back at TRB next year, and hopefully the agenda will represent exactly what we've been talking about. So I'd like to say thank you, Sheldon.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
And thanks very much, Rylan. And we'll see you all again out and about. So keep safe. Bye for now.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, guys.